Hi, welcome back. This is the second video for our job application database design process. In the last tutorial, we discussed what we would need to develop our database, and we split the requirements into 5 different categories. This database is to store the information of job applicants. So imagine a company want to hire people for some work, and you go maybe on their website and you can complete a job application form. So this database is to demonstrate how that can be done. The first requirement will be to look at the application form details. What information is going to be stored in our application form? And generally, we're going to be looking for things like the position that the user has applied for. We want to store that information. We want to also store the information of the user contact, so their name and their address, where they live. We want to also be able to get information about the user criminal conviction, because depending on the type of job, you might need to vet people to know their an ideal applicant to apply for that job, especially if you are working maybe in the health and social care sector and you're working with vulnerable people. You would need to check their criminal conviction, and generally I think it's just a standard way as well. And also in terms of the DBS, this more relate to the health and social care, or if you are working with vulnerable adults, so they will require you to have your DBS check. So in this database, we're going to be storing that information of the DBS as well, of the job applicant, and we're going to be getting some file that will be uploaded on the system. Another information we would also want to get, so that we can treat everybody equally, is to get their disability details, so that we can know whether we can give priority to applicant that has disability, and we can be able to treat everybody equally. In the UK, generally, every employer must abide by the Equality Act 2010, and also we want to know their educational details, so the school they went to, and we want to be able to keep all this information, because the user might be a master degree or a PhD, and they've gone through secondary school, they've gone through university, they've gone through master's degree, and they are doing their PhD. So they'll probably need to enter about 4 different types of educational details into this database table. So we need to be able to design our database to manage that information as well. Also, we want to know about the eligibility details. Eligibility could be something about whether the job applicant has the legal requirement to work in a particular country. So if you don't have a work visa or something, or a student visa, you might not be able to work in that country. So we want to be able to check, so that the applicant that are applying, we have to confirm that they have the right to work in that particular country. Also, it's always good to have an equal opportunity questionnaire. So at the end of the application, um, the user might have to complete an equal opportunity questionnaire as well. This ensures that the recruitment process is fair. So imagine all this information. We want to be able to keep track of every single one of them. So from present employ from the applicant present employment to their previous employment to their references, even to their personal statement, we want to be able to get this information. And at every stage, we want um, the user or the job applicant to be able to know what the application status is at every stage, or what the user status is, because this database, it's for this video, I'm only demonstrating in terms of the job application. But once the user has been interviewed and maybe has been offered a job, then we can say, all right, the job applicant status has changed from just an ordinary job applicant to an employee. So this status table is going to have different level of of status. So if they're an applicant in interview stage, and they're and the application is in process and they've been offered a job, all these will be managed from the status table. And in terms of the user access, we want to be able to know to keep details about the user, their name, their age, their date of birth, and so on. And we want to separate this information from their login details. So the user passwords will not be saved into the personal details table, and on the back end of the system, the password will be encrypted and hashed, so that the values that is saved into the database is something that cannot be read by a human being, even if our database was hijacked. Um, Also, we will need to know how to manage the user position as well, and also how to manage the user privileges and the user type. So all this information that we need to get different forms of data from the job applicant to be able to store them into this database, so that when we query this database, we will get all this information and we can easily get the user criminal conviction out, because we've stored this information in our database in the correct way. And this job application also considers the interview stage. It does not just allow the user to just complete an application and submit. It goes beyond that, which means you can also have the ability to record um, the job applicant's interview. So you want to know the type of answer they gave to a particular question. You want to know the observation that was recorded about them, whether they wore a suit or they wore jeans or they dressed properly. You know, all these little details, you want to be able to have this information, so that throughout the life cycle of that particular job applicant, from becoming an employee, you want to know how they started from when they apply for their the job. And in the last video, I also mentioned about the best practice that I consider myself, although a lot of people might not do it that way, but I've been doing this database design for quite a while now, and I've always use this rule of thumb in terms of default data. So for example, in the equal opportunity questionnaire, we're going to be asking the user some information like their dates, their age range. We're going to be asking them about their nationality, their gender, their religion, their sexual orientation, their ethnicity. We're going to be asking those questions in the equal opportunity questionnaire form. So we want to be able to capture the answer, the response of the job applicant into our database. So let's jump to Visual Studio, and I'll show you the walkthrough of the ER model, the data model. You can call it the entity relationship diagram as well, and I'll show you the tables, um, each of the entities that has been created based on the information we can see on the screen at the moment right now. So I will open our Microsoft Visio, and as you can see, Microsoft Visio is a very complex application, and we can manage all our information properly. So what I've done is I've created this because there are lots of tables, and it's going to take a lot of time if I have to do it while the video is recorded. So what I've done basically is to do it and then walk you through how this AR model works. I will start from the main table, which is the personal details table. Now this personal details table considers this information. So when the user first land on an application, maybe a mobile application or a web application, we want to present them with a registration or a sign up form, something, and then they have to use that information to complete their details. So that information goes into this table. So we can see we've given them their a reference number, and at a later stage we could even use this reference number as their employee number if they've been offered a job. And we have the user type, which shows the type of user they are, and we have like the title ID. This is a foreign key. Now I've not done the foreign key part, but if you want to add the foreign key to your table, all what you need to do is to come here, right click and set as foreign key, and you will have this as your foreign key. So where we have our some IDs, there will be foreign keys. Okay, and at the end of the video I can share this AR model as well if you're interested in developing a similar database for a job application website or a mobile app. So you can see now the application user application details is directly linked to these three tables, which we have the user password and we have the user type here, which is linked to the user password. So we know the type of user, whether they are a job applicant, whether they are an employee, or they've resigned. So we can easily specify their user type name here, and we can also specify the type of privileges they have. So maybe this particular user would have a privilege to maybe to approve an application on the website. So we want to give each of the user some privileges as well, and the password is saved. And as you can see, what I've done is every table that holds information that the user is going to enter has two dates in particular: the date that information was created, which is here, and the date that information was updated. Now this is generally a good practice because we want to know how often this user is even updating their password, or let's say the user decide to change their last name because they got married. We want to know when that changes was made. So this sort of information is what we want to be able to track with this dates created and this last updated. And as you can see, Visio also give us an opportunity to have these data types as well. So if we go again from so we've gone through the user personal details, and we have linked these user personal details to our user applied position. The reason why we have a separate table for the user applied position is because a user can have multiple applications. They're not going to just apply for one job in a particular company. They might have been trying to get into that company and they've been rejected several times. So imagine if they have several applications, we want to still have that record of the job application they've made in the past. So that is why this table is created, to track that. And we have an application ID, and which which in this table we also have a link. We have a foreign key which is to the user personal details. So um, I'll just correct the spelling. User personal details ID, which is this ID. So we know this particular user has applied, for this for a position. So this is also a foreign key, and we can track that information here. Also, it's always good, like I said, in all these tables or this data model we have the entities, we've created an attribute which is very detailed as well, so you can add more depending on your requirement. But I've practically used a real life job application to design this data model. So and if we look at this user applied position, we can see that it's linked to this user position. So in this user position, this holds all our positions that we have from top to bottom. So maybe HR, IT, accounting, design, the executive management and all that. We have everything here, so the user can just, from our front end, the user can select, and that's why we have the reference ID here as a foreign key which links to this table. So then we have the status ID as well, which shows this application status. So when we query the database and we want to know the status of this particular application, we can know that information because we have the status here, which is saved here. So the status would hold things like you submitted, interview stage, test stage, employed, resign, so like that and so on. Then the application form itself, as you can see, this user applied position, because we have the application ID, we don't need the personal details, the user personal details ID in all these tables. So what I've done here is to link this user applied position with this application ID to each of these tables, so the contact will know, because the user could make an application, let's say in January, and they live in a particular location, and they make application again, let's say in 6 months or in 9 months time, but they've moved. Obviously their address, their information will change, but with the application ID we can track and know about where the application has come from. And as you can see, I've used the data types as well, which Visio also provide. Generally, most of the time when you're creating an AR model, you don't really need to have your data types. However, it's a good practice if you have your data type defined, so that when this information is passed on to the database developer, the person who is going to translate this information into an SQL query to use it to create a database, then they already know this database, this AR model has provided them the data type, so they don't need to think about the data types anymore. They just need to follow what has been agreed in this documentation. So we can see here also it links to the criminal conviction. So I'll just zoom it a little bit, but because of the screen I'll be scrolling up and down, so you can see it links to the criminal conviction, and we have the disability table, which holds the information about the person's disability and also about the person's DBS, and they can upload an image as well. Now when you upload an image, the reason why I've made this a voucher and not a blob or something is because we're not going to be saving the image into our database. We're going to be saving the image on a folder on our web server. So the only thing that we're going to be saving here is going to be a URL link to that image. That's just what we'll be saving here. We'll not be saving the folder, the the photo or the image file itself in our database. Because of course, if we have 2,000 application, we don't want to have 2,000 images of DBS, because that's going to just slow down our application drastically. Another thing again that we have here is the grade management. So every grade that we have here, we've been able to put each and every one of the grade. And one of the practices that I personally use, that our employee to use as well, is, as you can see, my tables are well named. You can easily know what information goes into this table. You know, you you know some practices that I've seen, let's say they want to save education details, some can just say edu, and you don't really know what that stands for. But if you have a very descriptive name um for your data model, you'll be able to design a database that somebody can understand easily. And when you are writing queries, you don't need to think of using so many aliases or think of what does this name mean in your database, because everything is well defined. And I've also followed the best practice of using small letters to start, and underscore and small letter. Sometimes you can use capital letter. You can use first letter as capital letter, underscore, and then second letter capital letter. It all depends on you, but I just prefer this approach. It makes it clean and easy to read and understand. And as you can see, our IDs as well, we're not just saying ID, because if we just say ID, then we will have so many IDs here, and when we're querying our database, we won't even know which ID we are looking for. So it's always better for you to have your ID named in a descriptive name that you can really understand and know. So for this one, we have the user education ID details. Now, the reason why I've named each of these entities user underscore what is going to be stored there is because at this stage the user is just applying for a job. They are not an employee yet. So if you see, we don't have anything like employee number or employee start date. We don't have, because we don't know whether we're going to hire this person yet. So that's why we have that the description as user underscore on each of the table. And we have this user apply position as well. Is also linked to the present employment. It's also linked to the previous employment. We can track their references, as you can see, and also we can track their supporting statement. Now, I've done something very unique in a supporting statement that most job applications do not have. The way I've designed this table, or this entity here, is that we have different fields that the user can complete, let's say 200 or 300 words each, and can show their qualification, experience, their competency, their knowledge, their personal attribute, their values, their personal things that they like. They can easily write it in smaller chunks than having the applicant write an entire 3 or 500 or 1,000 words paragraph of page, of 1 page or 2 pages of text. And we don't want to save that in a particular, in just one single field, because then we might have to increase the length of, and when you're programming, you tend to have this issue that some text will just not save into your database. So I've simplified the personal statement section as well. So as you can see here, we have the default data. which just shows here the default data, the default title. So this holds all the titles, so we don't really need to physically type all the titles in our application. We can just call that, we can query this table, load the data here into a drop down box, and then the user can select the drop down. So whenever we decide again to maybe change or to delete a title or to add more title, we don't need to go to our application code to physically type the title that's why it's always good to design your database in a maintainable way, because you'll be interacting with a lot of information from the backend to present to your user when they are using your application. So this is a quick walkthrough, and in the next tutorial what we will look at, if we can do the part 3, is we are going to now translate this information into our physical database. So I'm going to show you in the next tutorial the physical database, and we could do some queries if time permits to do that session. As usual, thank you for watching, and comments, you give me your thoughts, what you think of this AR model, and I'll be glad to respond. I'll be looking at other AR model examples that I'll be designing, and I'll be doing the videos again. And so stay tuned to our SQL Database for Beginners YouTube channel. And this is your host again, James Ariel, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.